Hello, everyone. How are you?
Good.
Let's try it again. How are you? Thank you so much for coming out. My name is Charlotte Gullick, and I'm chair of the Creative Writing Department at Austin Community College. How many of you know that Austin Community College offers creative writing classes? Okay, so we're already successful. If you're thinking about taking a writing class and you're like, where would I do that? Come to us. We offer great classes, 15 people per class. And if you'll go and look under English and you're like, well, I don't know where creative writing is. You have to look under creative writing because we are one of the few community colleges in the United States that has its own creative writing department. So that's really cool. A few things. We do this monthly. John Herndon, who did this for years, he has retired, so we're going to be doing a kind of a flex model, maybe different faculty members hosting, trying out some new things. I was going to try a poetry action event after Britta read, but I forgot my cards, so come back for that next month. That'll be so cool. Next Thursday, on the 17th, at the Eastview campus, we're having a panel discussion on the difference between cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation. We have 4 really dynamic people in Austin who are going to speak on this topic. So you can email me. My last name is Gullick, G-U-L-L-I-C-K, and I can send you the info. I'm really excited about this panel. These folks did it at South by last year, and it was so popular that they added a second section to it. So they're doing it for us, and we don't have to pay to go to South by, so you should come. We have a lot of events in the Arts and Digital Media division, so check us out. We do a lot, it's really cool. And so we're gonna do this awesome thing tonight and listen to Britta. So I'll just tell you a quick moment about how we met. But before that, let's turn our phones off together, please. Because that's what it's going to be with each other. So what we'll do is I'll introduce Britta, and then she's going to read from her novel, and maybe do more than read. I'm super excited about that. And then afterwards, we'll have an open mic. There's some sign-up sheets. Some of you have already signed up. You're limited to 4 minutes. And there's some guidelines about the content. So those guidelines are there. If you're interested, take a look. So the Writers League of Texas is also a great organization in Austin. And they do the Agents and Editors Conference once a year. And they bring high-profile generally kind editors and agents to Austin. And I met Britta there, and I didn't know who she was, and she was so charming, and she said, yeah, I write YA, and I was like, oh, she should come read for us. So I'm so excited that she's here, and if you're someone who is a writer or wants to be a writer, take the risk of introducing yourself as a writer, because you don't know what will happen, what connections you can make. Before I introduce Britta formally, I'd like to thank Fernando and Claire for being here. These are the booksellers here, and this amazing space. How many of you haven't been here before? This is your first time in Malvern Books. So this is a super important bookstore. They only carry independently published books. So you're not going to find mainstream books here, and they're very knowledgeable about what they have in the store. So this is a really important place for writers to know about. So I'm really grateful to Malvern for hosting us. And then now we'll jump into Britta's bio. You guys still doing okay? Yeah. I've done this before, but this is my first official time. I'm all nervous. Is it okay? Is that right?
So far, so good.
So far, thank you. All right. Okay. So, Britta Jensen's debut novel, Eloia Born, was longlisted for the 2016 Exeter Novel Prize. Reviewers state, Aloha Born is both a dystopian narrative and a quest story. Consider it a spiritual successor to Lewis Lowry's The Giver and M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. Really interesting combo. We learned quickly that the people in Leonor's community are not blind by chance, but by design. The sequel, how do you say it? Hirana's War releases May 1st, 2020. Britta's short stories were shortlisted for the 2017 Henshaw Press and Fiction Factory Prizes, and she was published in the following anthologies: Stories for Homes Volume 2 and Sakura Dreams. Britta's plays have been performed in New York City, Japan, and South Korea. She holds a BA in acting performance from Fordham University and an MA in teaching of English literature from Columbia University, and has taught in schools and therapeutic settings for 15 years. She spent 22 years overseas in Japan, South Korea, and Germany before moving to Austin. You should check out her website after you hear her read. Please help me welcome Britta Jensen.
Thank you to Charlotte Gullick and Becky Garcia, Claire, and Fernando for having me here. Some of the questions Eloia Born asks: how do two blind teenagers trek across a planet that has been experimented upon and given disabilities by an alien race? Eloia Born is part adventure, part love story, and about the growing up that's necessary when you're 16 and 17. It's told from the perspective of a partially blinded girl, Leonor, and a fully blind boy, Dex. The part I'm going to read today takes place in chapter 10, after they're kicked out of their village, Asanas. They're on the 5th day of their trek as they leave the forest behind and enter the deserts of Hagoth.
Britta, can we move the mic a little closer to you because of the music next door?
Oh, yeah.
So we just want to make sure that
Right there.
Is that a little bit better, guys?
Can you all hear me?
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. All right, let me just... There we go. Dex. Trekking away from the center of the forest around Asanas hadn't made the terrain any easier. The howling the past 3 nights made sleep difficult. You'd think the more I hiked, the more my body would adjust. I couldn't decide which hurt more, the bits of exposed skin baking in the sun, my swollen feet, or the throbbing in my shins. Every day we found new things that might be useful to us. Bits of metal, scraps of fabric. We got lucky when Leonor found a whole sheet of cotton with only a few holes on one of the skeletons. She tried to place it on me, and I humored her for a bit. Sometimes it was just so hot you didn't want anything touching your skin, even to keep the sun off. I held onto Leonor's sleeve. In the early morning, she was a balm to my parched soul. But when the sun was high, I would have rather eaten nails than be touched by another warm-blooded creature. It turns out my excellent hearing was no use with endless desert before us. I begged every day for rain or wind. At least with the percussive pelting of rain, I could identify dangers to avoid or our distance from objects. Rain and wind gave dimension to what I couldn't see. I had to hold on to her, or I would be lost. I needed her help, but I also didn't want her leading me all the time. She clucked her tongue, then fell silent. She hadn't spoken since we woke that morning. It was too draining. Leonor thought we were being followed, which meant our pace had picked up, even though our ability to find food hadn't. Girls are always worried about something. I felt like I had to give in to her insane ideas because she could see things I couldn't, or because she was in pain from her monthly blood. Dex, she croaked. You want to stop? I asked, letting go of her sleeve. No. She stopped anyway. I heard her shuffling through the pack she'd made for us. We need water. Okay. Leonor handed me the water skin we had made and I chugged, then I stopped myself. I couldn't let it go dry. I had to pace myself. I tied the top and folded it before placing it back in the pack. It's okay, Dex, we haven't had water for a while. Her body's heat burned next to me. When her moist lips touched my rough cheek, I wished I had some way of savoring her closeness. Then wind blew dust in our faces, and the moment was gone. I feel so gross, I said. The desert birds, which Leonora called bions, swooped overhead. Warm liquid dripped onto my forehead and ran down my face, reeking of sour milk. The birds gave off throaty laughs and flapped away. I guess we lost the last of our tree cover. Leonora, not noticing, pulled me forward. Could you help a man out here? I yelled at her, and she used her tunic to wipe at my face. I hated her right then for being able to see, for being the only reason I was still alive. Even with the compass, I couldn't fight off a predator or avoid the edge of a ravine. I was helpless, completely dependent on the girl I was supposed to defend, whom I wanted to protect. The girl I had given up everything for. Dex, you okay? Her hands were soothing, but not soothing enough. Just fine, but I wasn't fine. I would never see my mother again. Not that I had seen much of her since Dad died and she had to go to work as a gear on the Navy belts. But I would like to have said goodbye. You'd think Zare could have at least given me that. When I told Leonora I wanted to leave with her, I didn't know it would be like this. This was nothing like the stories she read to me, nothing like the adventure songs. This was finally my chance to prove I was better than my father, better than Niku. And here I was, belly aching. Let's keep going. Her voice in my ear was a brook, burbling over smooth stones, but this voice that had always felt like home was drifting a little more from me. It's like I could see the different timbre in her voice in my mind. I wanted to hold her for longer, too. She let go. And we stood there in this awkward moment with only the dust blowing in our faces and insects buzzing too close to my ears. I slapped them away, but they still came back to torment me. Lua-lulai, I caught you with my eye the other spring day when we were walking. Leonor sang to me, probably hoping to dispel the funk that had settled over us. She took my hand and we walked. Had I thrown my life away by choosing her, or was I giving in to my bad genes? Throughout the day, the cries of the animals changed to where I could only hear cawing and shrill birdsong. The familiar sounds of the forest were gone. Without her telling me, I knew we had reached the desert. The ground underneath had turned to grainy sand that cushioned our steps. Our footfalls were quiet in the warm afternoon sand. Soon enough, the day's heat chilled as I felt the sun dip below the horizon. I held on tighter to Leonora's hand. She was trembling. She gave a squeeze and let go. Not much to hide behind if something is following us. I took her pack off her shoulders. Can you see? I asked, feeling that it must be already dark. Only a little. She took the pack from me. How far do you think we went today? I made a number up, maybe 5 miles. We'll have to get water again tomorrow. Tomorrow morning I can venture over to the stream. She laid a reassuring hand on my arm, but I didn't want her rescue or pity. I'm not daft. I can walk as well as you can. I know. She moved away from me, wrapping the long cloth around her. She threw 2 other pieces of clothing at me. I folded them around me. It's already cold. Leonora began humming a tune. Even parched and sand-scraped, her voice was high and light. Lua-lulai, come back, my prize. Do not deny all that we once were. Lua-lulai, why do I try? The journey below to your heart is a lie. La-da-da-dai, la-da-da-dai, la-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-dai. Her song reminded me of stories about distant singing stars and ships flying through the sky. If ever man could fly, I think her songs would carry me away. I forgot for a moment why I was annoyed. Keep singing, please. I whispered to her, pulling her close. We curled into each other, our legs entwined like a perfect puzzle piece. Within seconds, her voice had stopped, her breathing slowed. She rolled away from me, already asleep. I placed my hand on her back and pulled the cloth tighter around us. I quietly hummed her tune. Like a lullaby, it played through my dreams. Dex, something's out there, can you hear it? She shook me awake. Whatever had been growling and hissing in the distance was coming closer. Get up! Leonora rolled me over. I'm awake! Whatever the thing was, it must have been following us from the forest, waiting for us to get clear of the trees to make its move. She started toward the sound and I grabbed for her, but I was too late. Leonora, don't go out there! She was gone. I grabbed my knife. The day was still cool, though I could feel the sun's rays starting on my bare back. I heard it again, no longer circling. Its throaty growls came at us from the same direction as the sun. Then it hissed and retreated in strange S-curves of sound. Holy swat, I hated the desert. What is it? I don't know, Leonora whispered. Could you at least describe what we're dealing with here? I instantly felt like a swazbag. This wasn't her fault. I crouched, facing the creature, ready if it got close enough for me to stab it. It's very large, like a huge snake with legs. She was between me and the creature. I'm going to get closer to get some dimensions. No, don't do that. I've got my knife. I moved forward, around Leonora. She pulled herself past me. Wait, it might not be dangerous. We kept trying to push each other out of the way while the thing growled louder, disproving that theory of hers. Its growls deepened into a roar, and the birds I hadn't known were overhead, squeaked and squawked. It has a long swishing tail and a medium-sized mouth with large teeth. She put her hand on my knife hand, but it's moving away from us. It's strange squiggle movements because of its wide legs, I think. It doesn't want to hurt us. What's making that squeak sound? Leonor took a deep breath. The sun's in the way. I used her distraction to push her behind me and edge closer to the lizard thing. The roaring increasing. The aroma of burnt meat blew across us. Is that its breath? I drew my knife and heard it hit something. It hissed for a long time, and then nothing. Tex, you killed it! Leonora sounded so sad. It wasn't hurting us. Why did you have to do that? She pushed past me. Wait, no, it's moving. Good, it's moving away. I shoved her out of the way and ran until I stumbled into the thing. It was huge. Dex, no, please, leave it alone! Leonora clawed at me as I searched for my knife. I want to make sure it's dead so it doesn't follow us. I got closer to the exhalations of the creature. Maybe we can eat it. My hand closed on the hilt and I jerked the knife free. She clung to my arm with both hands. No! I didn't want to hurt her, but I couldn't leave this thing to attack us in our sleep. I pushed her off of me, found the neck, and stabbed again. Leonora hit my hand hard, enough to send the knife flying. That's fine, I thought. I had done what I needed to do. But then she threw the knife into the distance where I couldn't retrieve it. We need that. I pushed her, knocking her back. You should be thanking me. Go, Dex, great conqueror of the desert, I yelled. She knocked me to the ground. What did you do that for? You killed an innocent creature. The lizard thing wasn't hurting us. Well, it sounded like it wanted us for a nice juicy snack. You couldn't see it, you idiot. It wasn't aggressive. It was scared of us, she yelled. I'm the idiot who wants to protect us. Next time I'll just let the giant lizard take a bite out of you before I decide it needs killing. I can't believe you. Leonora backed away from me. We're losing time. We need to go. She was really getting on my nerves. What about breakfast? What about not killing things unnecessarily? What about getting back our one and only knife so we can eat? She stormed off, hopefully to retrieve my knife. It was going to be a long day. Ow! Another sand burr in my foot. I couldn't smell those. I reached down to remove it and felt warm blood. The prickly thing stabbed my fingers. Leah, I need to stop. She never seemed to step on anything. I might as well be a whining baby. I was so dependent on her. My dead father was laughing his ass off, his youngest son being led across the desert by a girl. I had to stop thinking like this. My fingertips had swollen where I'd grabbed the sand burr. Dex, let me see. Her tangy aroma enveloped my sense of smell. Sit on the rock. We need to bandage your foot. She lifted it up. It was still bleeding. The warm liquid ran down the side of my leg, though it didn't throb as much now that the burr was gone. I braced myself for her shoulder because my head felt strange, like noisy insects swarming inside. Can I have some water from my pack? I felt foolish not feeling it for myself, but it was like the sun was beating the thoughts out of my brain. I couldn't remember where the water was. Every part of me was drying up. We're going to have to rest here. Leonora spoke softly like she didn't want to upset me. Dad roared in my ear, letting a girl tell me what to do. What kind of man was I? No! I made a fist. We've got to keep going. Did I slam my fist down? Our water is running out. I can make it back to the river. Leonora untied my pack and lowered it off me. Why can't we just keep going? She pulled stuff out and set up our lean-to with sticks and old blankets. We're gonna die out here. A wave of dizziness knocked me off the rock. My foot throbbed harder, the pain spreading up to my calf, a fire that engulfed all of my leg. My leg is killing me, I yelled without meaning to. Get inside the lean-to. It's a stupid flesh wound, Leonora. I can walk, no problem. But I just rolled around. Sand stuck to my face and blew into my mouth. She dragged me inside the makeshift tent. Dad loved the fact I couldn't stop her. Why was he in my head now? Soft feet, like you're soft all over. His voice heckled me. No one in a saunas wears shoes. They don't need them. Except for the council, I shouted at him. Dex? So you're soft like the council? Dad said. What about the gears? Like Mom, I asked him. He didn't answer. Dex, who are you talking to? My fingers on my left hand felt like sausages. Did you already remove the burr from your foot? Leonora asked me. An instant chill of ice water flowed through my veins. A cool mixed stew rushed through my head, trying to leak out of my ears. But the pain subsided. Dad's laughing voice faded a little, and the sound of Leah's voice went hazy like static. The shadow of her in front of me was sharper, neon colors flashing behind her. Colors I remembered seeing a long time ago. Blue, green, pink, and yellow. I always liked her in yellow. Leonor at age 5 floated in front of me, wearing a short yellow tunic displaying her pale legs. Her arms were bare, showing the wine red stains and splotches on her arms and neck. People called her ugly before the mists. I'd always liked the red patterns on her skin. They set her apart. She danced in front of the 5 moons of Eloia, each a slightly different color, Zarga in pale green, Neptil in orange, Ura glowing white, Cashew in purple, and Wellow in red. She sang, raising her arms to the light of the moons glowing in the night sky. Stars, I heard myself say, and I was outside my body. I looked down on myself on the ground and then zoomed back into my body before leaping out again. I could see. The desert sky was black except for the moons glowing. Leonora flew with me in the air. Then I was pulled back, out of the darkening vision. My stomach lurched with the motion of the 2 worlds I was bouncing between. What did you say, Dex? Leah pressed a wet cloth to my forehead, dipping my head up to drink. Her voice spiraled away from me, the moon spinning around her. My foot was numb now. That seemed important, but I couldn't remember why. And I didn't care because little Leonora in her yellow dress had returned, singing and dancing in front of me. At the same time, I was floating above the older Leonora below, caring for my still body. She was beautiful. The moons called to me to join them, promising me that I could be peaceful and happy. Maybe I could soar up to each moon and touch them before floating off to the stars.
So I was just looking at it, and so can you talk a little bit about the choice to have blind characters or visually impaired characters? Because I think that's a really interesting story that you share in the book.
Yeah, my mom actually has the same blindness that Leonora has, so like no peripheral vision, and it's hard to see past a certain point, like 20 feet. It's very blurry. And then I also taught, many of my students were blind, not many, but a few, when I taught in Germany, and so I had one student that I saw through his whole 3 years of, he had me for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and by 8th grade I was like, you really hate me, don't you? And he's like, yeah, I kind of do. Because he had 2 classes with me every year for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. But we got really close, and there was a moment where I saw him with this girl that had been switched into my class because she was causing problems in other classes, and I saw the way he looked at her and how he was suddenly really excited to do his assignments. And even though he could only see her, like a little bit of her, there was just like this moment, he was so in love with her and she was so not in love with him. And so the story kind of sprung a little bit out of that.
And who do you see as your target audience for your work at this point?
I think with Eloia Born, it's definitely 13 and above. I tend to, right now, more adults tend to read it, but it's definitely, like my test audience was definitely my 13 and 14-year-old students. But I'm noticing that the sequel, which I'm working on right now, is kind of aging up. So.
And the last question is, how did you choose the names of the moons? Isn't one Cashew?
Yeah, Cashew, Wellow. I kind of make them up. I speak English, Japanese, Spanish, German, and then a smattering of just like little bits of some other languages. And so I think that kind of makes me make up names for fun. But I also have like a schematic that I'll draw up and I'll like kind of pick random letters and smush them together and be like, ooh, that sounds nice, I'll use that.
Great. Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.